Good morning guys, welcome back. I'm having a little bit of a thoughtful morning, so I thought I would sit down with a cuppa for a moment and talk it out, and then we'll get to work. What I'm thinking about this morning is wind. I'm having a problem with how breezy it is here. Being out on a peninsula in the Irish Sea, breezy conditions were inevitable, and actually I've been quite pleasantly surprised. Winter was a bit of an eye-opener when it came to the wind, but since spring has come around and the weather's changed, the sun's out, it's not been so bad, but a bit breezy by my standards now. Is still very windy for small seedlings. So some things that are put out there have just dealt with it fine. Some things are a bit battered but are pulling through, and some things are just not dealing with the wind at all. So I need to have a think about realistically if there's anything I can do to combat the wind, and sort of where the limitations lie and what I can actually feasibly do with the conditions that I've got. Because while I can protect certain things, there are some more sheltered areas. I could put up windbreaks for specific areas. Realistically, I'm not going to be putting up a load of like permanent fencing. I just need to sort of factor it into a longer term plan of where I want to be able to grow certain things, and I might just have to accept that there's some things that until I've got a properly protected area, be it a polytunnel or a greenhouse or even just a properly wind broken patch to put a bed in, that there's going to be some things that maybe just aren't feasible in this climate. Seriously, if you had that moment when you look at the back of a seed packet and the conditions for a plant are always well sheltered. There's not many things that are like, cool with being hyper exposed. Everything wants a sheltered condition, especially when you're talking like annual vegetable plants. I know I've got some sheltered spots. We've got hedgerows and things like that. But I need to really think about what I want to prioritise, and so what I put in those spaces, because not everything can go in a sheltered spot. I feel like once the garden gets more established, then there will naturally be more wind broken areas because there'll be established plants out there, whereas at the moment everything is quite, you're putting small seedlings out into a big open field that catches a lot of wind. Like it's not surprising that some of them are struggling, but how long can you wait while things get established before you put other things in? So for things that have a short growing season, then that's fine. I can just wait and put them in later, whereas things that need a longer season, if they can't deal with a bit of wind, then that's going to be a problem. While I could totally consider putting in proper windbreaks, I also have to think about budget-wise. If the reason I don't have a greenhouse or a polytunnel at the moment is because I got to pay for it, and that's not on the cards this year. If you've just joined us on this channel, this is our first year gardening here. We've just moved here. We work to pay for it. We're working as we go, and we'll upgrade as we go. So that's one of those things that's on the list. So if I start spending money on things like proper windbreaks or putting in new hedgerows or things like that, is that just pushing back me getting the polytunnel, which might actually be a better solution? Would it be better off using the part of this field that's already quite protected from the wind to put a tunnel in, and then you're creating a really good environment for loads of things, rather than trying to make spending lots of money making little pockets of wind broken areas only to then have to start saving for a polytunnel after that? I don't know. I have to think about it. Okay, so let's pop out to the garden and see what's already growing in there, what's coping well, what's not, and some of the things I might be able to do to help some things along, at least in the short term, while they're so young and getting established. So the garlic has dealt fine with the weather, to be honest. It's been out here since November of last year. It's gone through all the winter storms and just dealt with everything. So I think, it's looking a little bit haggard now. It's been really, really dry the last few weeks here. But other than that, I think it's done really well. Definitely on the list of things that can handle our Welsh conditions. I've got a line of tomatoes in the centre of this bed here. My plan is to fill out with other things as the season progresses, but I didn't put all of these in at the same time, so there's a few down that end which went in at least 3 weeks ago now, and then every time they haven't died I've come out and put a couple more in just to see how they go. I think they weren't too happy with me putting them out that early, but realistically they were outside in the cold frames anyway, so I thought, I just want to see how they cope. And actually they did better than I thought. They had a bit of a shocker, and for a couple of weeks they didn't do anything, but they have started to put on new growth now, so I'm starting to think They might just have forgiven me and I might just get away with tomatoes. I've got this Florida weave beginnings of set up, so we'll see how that goes here. I don't know if I'll need something a bit more substantial, but this is a nice cheap way of doing things, so I'm going to see how it goes. I've also got a bed with Roma tomatoes in over there, which obviously I won't be Florida weaving in this way. But I do need to find a way of giving them some support, I think, otherwise it might just be a bit of a mess once some wind hits them. At the moment they're so small and so low to the ground that I think that they're just dealing with things fine at the moment, so fingers crossed for some tomatoes this year. So the onions I started from seed back in January, end of January I think. They're doing really well. They've coped with pretty much everything, so I multi-sowed them and we've been taking spring onions and left sort of 2 or 3 left in a clump. I think I'll leave them now and see how they go, see if we can get some proper bulbed up onions, but they've coped with the weather completely fine, so again hopeful for onions in the future. Now down here I put some cucumbers out a couple of days ago just to see how they would cope. Not at all is the answer. They were looking grand in the cold frame, so I don't think it's I don't think it's a temperature issue. I think it's a wind issue. It's just far too exposed out here and the stems just got damaged really quickly, even though I've sort of tied them up and tried to give them some support. It's not enough out here, so I think cucumbers are really going to struggle. I think they might just be a little bit too fragile for what I can offer them, but we shall see. I've also got celery in this bed. Never grown celery before, but we shall see how it goes. At the moment they're coping with the conditions no problem. I put them out when overnight was about 10 degrees C, so we'll see if we get anything out of those, if that was warm enough for them overnight. I'm not sure, but we'll see. In this bed I've also got some chickpeas. They have, so early days I think I put about 5 or 6 out and the slugs got them. So I think there's 3 left and they're doing quite well now. They've picked up really well. But yeah, as I say, the slugs got some early, so I don't think I can blame the wind for that. I've got swifts nesting in the stables and I'm just watching them come and go. Otherwise in here we've just got spinach and some perpetual spinach and some lettuce, and that's all done absolutely fine, so promising. So up this trellis we've got some peas growing. These are sugar snaps. They are doing really well. Again, they must have gone out a good month ago now. Again, there was a bit of slug damage, potentially birds, potentially mice. I didn't direct sow because anything I direct sow here, like in terms of peas and beans and sweet corn and things, they just disappear. So I started these in modules and then I put them out when they were just sort of 2 or 3 inches tall. Again, they were quite slow to get started, but now they've got a handle onto this frame, they seem to be growing quite well, so hopefully they'll do fine. I do sort of worry a little bit that as they grow, at the moment where it's also low to the floor, we've got a hedgerow about, I don't know, 15 metres in that direction, so while they're low to the ground they are a bit protected, but as soon as they come up above that then the wind might start to catch them and we'll see. But at the moment, this has all actually gone fine. In this bed I've also got some more onions, we've got some corn salad, there's some more perpetual spinach, and everything is doing fine out here, so that's good to know. So this here is the makings of my herb garden. There's some parsley in here, some sweet rockets, some chives, some other bits and bobs, but it's only been in for about a week or so. Nothing has died an immediate death, but it's still probably just a bit too soon to tell whether or not they're going to make it. We shall see. So this bit is a little bit dangerous because these here are some hot peppers and some bell peppers. Is North Wales the ideal place to grow peppers of any variety? No, not really, but I like them, so I'm gonna see how we go. Obviously if one day I get a greenhouse that would be better suited, but not having one at the moment means I just have to make do, and I'd like to see how they do. I am not expecting it to be a great yield. I am aware that this is not the ideal place to do this, but this is my most sheltered spot down here. The hedgerow is only about 8 metres away in that direction. It's quite established, it's quite tall. So I'm hoping that that gives these guys enough protection, but we'll have to wait and see. They've only been in a few days, and again, they've not immediately crumbled, so fingers crossed we get some peppers off them, but I have to wait and see. Behind me we have some broad beans. Unsurprisingly, they've been fine. I put them in back in January. I wish I'd started them last autumn and overwintered them, but I didn't, so hey ho. I started them in January, put them out here, they have coped with everything. They're a little bit wonky, and so they have been a bit splattered at times. I have now put the support around them just to try and keep them in a bit of a bunch, so as they start to grow a bit taller, we'll be able to hold them at least inside sort of outline of the bed, and then hopefully they'll give each other a bit of support as well. But as I say, they've coped well. There's some peas in there. They've coped a little bit less well. I think it's because I had all these compost bags stacked up next to them on this bed, and I think that's just been a bit of a haven for slugs and things. Things have worsened in condition the closer they get to that pile of compost bags. So I'm starting to think maybe I've created a bit of a habitat for stuff that wants to eat my beans. But other than that, I think it's done really well. Hey, Munchkin. So there's also some potatoes in here. I've just interplanted them amongst the broad beans, so we'll see how they do. They were some first earlies, so I'll be taking them out soon and just having some new potatoes. Alright, mate. Hey. Mwah. Now, this is the last thing that's actually planted out here in the garden to show you at the moment. There's other things still up in the cold frames and whatnot, but this here is the makings of my brassica cage. As you can see, I'm just using the net tunnels at the moment, but there is a plan in place for the walk-in cage, so hopefully I'll be sharing that soon. The netting is due to arrive tomorrow, so fingers crossed that will go to plan. Even if it doesn't, I shall show you. In here we've got some broccoli, some cauliflower and some cabbages that I'll go into more detail once I look back at my records and see what I've put in here. But I've put these down here in this most protected spot behind this hedgerow. It does mean that they get a little bit blocked for light, but it's brassicas, they don't really mind. It's a bit wetter down here. Again, it's brassicas, they don't really mind. But really, I'm just protecting them from the wind because I'm really hopeful for some Brussels sprouts, because I bloody love Brussels sprouts. And I know that they really don't like getting buffeted around too much in the wind. So fingers crossed this does the trick and we'll be eating sprouts at Christmas. Only time will tell. Hi guys, so it's been a few days since I recorded the first part of this video. A little addition, I did put some pole beans or some climbing French beans out, and they are also doing totally fine. They didn't even have a little gap in growth, they just carried right on. So again, I think they are coping fine, but I thought I would just update on the peppers because they are not really looking great. And it has been so warm. It's been 12 degrees overnight, between 15 to 19 in the daytime, so it's been as good as you could hope for it to be where we are, and these are starting to look really quite sad. So I just wanted to update you on that. And just to summarise overall what I think the findings are of planting things out in this exposed windy garden, that actually I'm pleasantly surprised that most things are doing absolutely fine. But the things that can't cope with windy conditions are cucumbers, no chance. Peppers, well, I'm not writing them off just yet, but if any of these do make it, I think the yield is going to be pretty poor on them. So, but we will wait and see, and I will keep you updated. But so far, I'm quite pleasantly surprised. I just need a new plan for the rest of my peppers and for my cucumbers. And I do have a plan, and I will tell you that in the next video. So thanks so much for watching. Cheers guys.